So if you're running Tren at pretty high dosages and combining it with Anadrol, but you don't have any side effects, you clearly have some secrets to share. And that's what I wanted to get into. Like, how can we run Trenbolone without any side effects? So for me, the solution was to take the pussy dose of 25 milligrams per week, SubQ, and I barely have any side effects.
Well, some of the guys in the Olympia stage are running, some of them are running 2 to 250 acetate a day.
Yeah. Welcome to the Anabolic Roundtable, episode 4. I can't believe it's been the 4th episode. We've been doing this for 4 months already. Wow. Time flies. We are joined with Kurt Havens and the one and only Dr. Dean St. Mart. It's great to have you guys back on the podcast again. And we have a lot of cool topics. I want to discuss Trenbolone side effects. I want to discuss Methylene Blue and SLU-PP-332 after I started running it myself. We're going to do a little intramuscular versus subcutaneous injections debate, whether that's for steroids or growth hormone or other compounds. And then let's might as well discuss mirabegron versus clenbuterol, because we might have found a new fat burner on the market that everybody now is switching to. Let's get started with Methylene Blue and SLU-PP-332, because I just introduced it based on Dr. Dean's raving about it. And I got to give you a standing ovation, because this combination is fucking legendary. It's nice. It's energetic. It's euphoric.
Yeah,
I'm coming off SSRIs, right? So I couldn't combine vortioxetine with methylene blue. I got full blown serotonin syndrome for one day. It was horrible. So I stopped the SSRIs. I let that metabolize, and now I'm on 5 milligrams methylene blue. And this is the shiznit. This is like the missing ingredient that I've been looking for the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that it's hard to explain when you sort of optimize your brain chemistry that way. Like, we're now I'm probably quote unquote dieting now, probably 16 or 17 weeks. And my body fat, from what I've shared there photo-wise, is very, very low. And I've had none of these sort of lethargy, whether that is physical or mental, get up in the morning, smash cardio. And I just put it down to that sort of like the whole mitochondria optimization with that oxygenation that the methylene blue brings. Yeah. The sort of, like people have raised, it does inhibit MAO. So you do have to bear that in mind. But for someone like me, we didn't talk about this in the last podcast. My genetics, I've got MAOA++. So I've got like a very fast MAOA enzyme. And that's how, when I looked into my genetics, why depression runs on my mother's side. So the methylene blue gives the upstand there against my own genetics, on top of, keeping on top of tryptophan intake and 5-HTP. But the methylene blue, I wish I tried it sooner than this year. So it's definitely one that I will continue to utilize. And like what we caveated on, 2 or 3 times per week, maybe max 4, but it's not something that I believe you should be like taking every single day. Similar to any nootropic, or that you want to take breaks so that you don't become more so psychologically dependent that, I have to take this every day. And so you observe the effect when you do take it.
Right. I agree. So I might be very similar in your sense that I might be MAOA++, but I never done a genetic analysis to determine that. I've always taken 5-HTP and tryptophan and got a good result of that. And then, the last couple of years I've been experimenting with SSRIs to kind of see if that was a game changer, which the fluvoxamine was, but the vortioxetine, I will never run that again. That basically killed my libido to the point even ejaculation was non-enjoyable. So I took that out. And the methylene blue might actually then offer a solution for, coming off SSRIs, because normally stopping the fluvoxamine or vortioxetine, you would get brain zaps, right, from the sudden drop in serotonin levels. But those are non-existent. I take it 4 or 5 times a week, 5 milligrams. 10 milligrams was a little bit of a too high dose for me on the methylene blue. So I don't feel any withdrawal now, which is a warm welcome, because the last time I came off fluvoxamine after running it for almost a year at 100 milligrams per day, I had the worst withdrawal ever. And I've tried a lot of drugs in my life. for longer periods of time. That was probably the worst withdrawal ever, even worse than PCT. But nothing now. So 5 milligrams per day gets the job done 4 to 5 times a week. And did you guys ever try Peak O2 as an intra-workout or pre-workout? It's a mushroom extract.
Yeah.
So the Peak O2, it kind of helps with oxygenation and then making it easier to breathe as well. And this is basically like 2 grams, 4 grams of Peak O2 times 10.
Yeah.
Because the oxygenation and the breathing, I think if you combine this with a nasal strip where you kind of open up your nostrils, it's amazing.
I found like in the morning time when I take and then obviously go off do cardio, like your cardio efficiency is so much improved. And then obviously the other thing I guess is when you have that improved oxygenation is your mitochondria a lot more efficient, but then there's a lot more potential for oxidative stress. So, it comes back to, again, making sure that as you're utilizing that oxygen, you're able to clean up the byproducts of what the mitochondria are doing.
Yeah, I think my antioxidant profile is very, very good. My vitamin C and glutathione and NAC and glycine that I take, all these things I do at the same time. So I didn't notice any increase in oxidative damage after adding in the methylene blue and then later on the SLU-PP-332. I do know that this combination regarding energy levels, but also body temperature, did increase a bit. Like I'm a little bit more clammy, more sweaty now. But energy levels, it's an absolutely phenomenal stack. And the methylene blue is reasonably inexpensive. And the SLU, of course, is a little bit more pricey because it's a new compound in the market. There's maybe 2 or 3 sources that have it. And even though we all offer discount codes for those sources, it still adds up. So you wanted to run the SLU to 700 micrograms per day?
Yeah,
did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, either 6 or 7. We had it consistently at 4. And then I took it out when we went on vacation. So again, I wanted to just make sure that the sort of bias of taking it for whatever it was, 12, 14 weeks continuously, take it out. And then went back in this week at 4. We've a couple of weeks probably to the next show that I'm planning to do. So there's probably a tiny bit more fat to come off if I want to be really, really critical. I've just been in Morgan's clinic there before the podcast because my big toe and my little toe had pins and needles because there's literally no fat now on my toes where the nerve is rubbing. Yeah. So she was looking at my feet for me. I want to see maybe what 600 or 700 does for the last little bit. I don't think there's going to be any difference. I think 400 to me is probably the sweet spot based on, that the animal dosage equivalent in humans works out like 4 milligrams per day. So when you're at 400 micrograms, you're sitting way below that 4 milligram top dose.
So I did the conversion from the animal models, right? It varies between 25 milligrams once per day to 50 milligrams twice per day, but it's all through intraperitoneal injection. So that's basically into the abdomen. But this is per kilogram. So if you convert this from 50 milligrams twice per day to humans, I think it's 4 milligrams per kilogram.
Correct.
So that would mean that you have 400 milligrams for a 100 kilogram bodybuilder. And our dosing protocol is like literally 1,000 of that at 400 micrograms.
And that was considered the top end dose of what was effective? What you guys
and they say that it's reasonably benign. So liver enzymes, lipids, most of it seems to be unaffected. And they had an insulin resistance study. I already prepared for a deep dive, so I'll release that. I think over the next couple of days, I'll start recording that based on the 7 studies that Dean sent me and I was able to find. So there's that much there. But it seems to prevent insulin resistance or improve insulin sensitivity in obese model states where they get like a 60% high fat diet. And then the rest is carbs and protein. So it prevents fat gain, improves glucose homeostasis and glucose metabolism. And then in a normal state, it really improves fat metabolism to the point it helps with body composition. So fat mass goes down. It's weird that in the studies they say, in the rodent studies, they keep the mice in a thermoneutral environment. And that they say that there's no change in body temperature. But I noticed at least a combination of methylene blue and SLU-PP-332 is at body temperature and climminess, and it does go up a little bit. So there's clear mitochondrial efficiency and energy expenditure going up. And then you combine it with Mirabicron and whatever else I'm on. So I would tell people to proceed with a little bit of caution. If you train in a gym without air conditioning, drink a lot of water, because I'm sweaty as shit. And that's why I understand why Dean was having a hard time in Dubai.
Yeah.
Because he was on this stack or just coming off of it.
I was still doing it when we were in Dubai. I was still taking it. So the only time I took a break was those 2 weeks in Lanzarote when we went on vacation there. And I'm sort of glad we did, because when we were over there, it was like 31, 32 degrees every day. So it was quite warm. That in itself, like I was sort of saying before we went live, the holiday sort of confirmed to me about how sensitive your body can be towards like food allergies, if you want to put it that way. With how my weight shot up like 16 pounds on holiday with no change other than adding in milk protein puddings when I ran out of plant-based protein.
So what I think is if you kept the SLU-PP-332 in, you probably wouldn't have gained so much. And I think this is the reason why you improved your body composition in Dubai, even though you had a free meal every day, because it seems to prevent fat gain while you're eating a little bit off plan, or at least from the animal models. So I will surely run SLU-PP-332 at the Mr. Olympia, eat whatever the fuck I want, and then see how my body composition is afterwards, because... right? I mean, if it's reasonably benign based on the limited scientific evidence we have, and you can just, go off plan for a week or two and not gain anything, then at least you don't have this overcompensatory period where you, need to get lean again, need to do a fast, need to blah, 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 So I think it's quite beneficial in that aspect also.
What's the mechanism that it's preventing fat gain? Do we know?
So it increases mitochondrial biogenesis, it improves fatty acid oxidation, improves insulin sensitivity and glucose metabolism. Apparently it shifts muscle fiber type to type 2A, even though that's mostly related to glucose. Like with cardarine, for example, I think it shifts it to type 1. That's mostly fatty acid oxidation. So in this one study, they mentioned that it shifts to type 2A muscle fibers, which improves glucose metabolism. But then through mitochondrial biogenesis, fatty acid oxidation goes up. So it seems to just basically be literally an exercise mimetic, like cardarine is.
Interesting.
And metformin used to be. Not anymore, though.
One sort of, and this is pure anecdote, since it's gone back in, now I'm not going to promote this, but when we were on vacation, I was probably sleeping 6 to 7 hours. So I was going to bed about 11:30, waking up at 6:30, 7 a.m. Now I can go to bed 11 p.m. and wake up 4:45 a.m. So it's like, 5.5 hours, 6 hours sleep. And my sleep quality and I guess perceived rest is just as good as the longer duration of sleep. So in terms of like the SLU going back in, it seems again from that energy metabolism perspective, I'd never say you can get away with less sleep unless you actually feel like physically and mentally refreshed. But definitely there's been, change in sleep duration, but no impact to recovery since that's gone back in. So obviously an energy metabolism perspective, sleep improving, less sleep required to feel more rested.
Okay.
You also take a break off your self-prescribed 4-IU growth hormone on training days?
So
people couldn't believe that, by the way, when I made a reel about that.
Yeah, I mean, when we went away, I added it back in because obviously it was out with all the shows, and then it's now back in again, probably 3 weeks, and probably it'll come back out again. I always like to stop it about 2 weeks before any show, just to make sure that me personally, I know when I do take it, my weight goes up about 2.5 kilos, so about 5 pounds of fluid goes on from, I guess, intramuscular fullness. But yeah, between the two of them, I guess I can be a more efficient business person where I can, sleep 5 hours and still operate at high efficiency.
There you go. So it pays for itself because now you can work more. and even though it's quite an expensive compound, like all the new stuff that we usually talk about, Dean, do you have access to 5-amino 1-MQ?
Yeah.
So could you, besides increasing the SLU to 600, 700 micrograms, could you also throw in 100 to 150 milligrams 5-amino 1-MQ to see if that really strips the last little bit of fat off? Because, of course, it helps with, it's an N-methyltransferase inhibitor, right? Nicotinamide N-methyltransferase inhibitor. So it prevents the breakdown or promotes the recycling of NAD+. And I think, when you're 5%, 6% body fat, this fat metabolism really slows down in adipose tissue. So based on the mechanisms that I know of SLU and 5-amino 1-MQ, I think this would go really well together. But you would be a perfect example to run this experiment.
Well, I think when we get off this, then I think I know what I'll put an order in, and let's put it to the test. Let's put it to the test.
Yeah, I would love to see it, because I think you can really dial it in with that stack alone. Of course, it's such a shame that these are poorly examined compounds that are super expensive, even with discount codes. But I've been, the 5-amino 1-MQ, I did a deep dive on like 2 or 3 years ago already, and people are always hesitant to run it. But I think if you just run those 3, methylene blue, SLU, and 5-amino 1-MQ, I think sky's the limit regarding fat loss.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
What's the cost for the 5-amino?
So that would run you maybe $200 to $250 a bottle.
Okay. How long does the bottle last? Typical dosing?
Month.
Okay. Yeah, that's not.
I'm just looking up here from.
It's like a day of growth hormone.
Yeah.
From my source.
I just remember my wife injecting like $200 worth of follicle stimulating hormone every day right next to me. It's like, I've never injected that much in my life in one shot.
So 120 pound for 50 milligram capsules. So that's what, if you take 150, that's 10 days. So what are we looking at for a month? About 360 pound for the month. Yeah. But
it's not hard one.
I think let's try even the 2 weeks. Let's do the 150.
Yeah, I think you only need it at the end. Like I always tell people that people ask me about 5-amino 1-MQ. I said, what should I add it in? I said, when your fat loss stalls, and the only way to get the fat off is by throwing the kitchen sink at it, and that's from 5%, 6% downwards. So I think Dean is in a perfect position to kind of prove that point. To see, besides the SLU, if you throw in the 5-amino 1-MQ and have this synergistic effect regarding fat burning and mitochondrial efficiency, if that is worth the money to run at the last end. So maybe one bottle can get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we're, at amateur level, as to speak, when certain protocols like this start spiraling properly. I know there are some, of the top level IFBBs that are using some of these compounds, but it's not really, when you look at the sort of guru coaches, I doubt they're sort of coming at the angle that we are from a, mitochondrial efficiency perspective.
Why do you think these pro guys are coming to us for these questions though? I mean, I don't know about you, Dean, but like since the last podcast, I've had 7 IFBB pros in my inbox asking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's good to see.
And some of these guys are prepping for the Mr. Olympia, Yeah. So we might see something different this year in some of the athletes.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to get them away from the traditional stuff, right? Like the thyroid.
Yeah. Or 7 grams of Masteron,
or DMP. 7 grams of Masteron with 100 milligrams of test.
Yeah.
Backup champions.
I do know a couple of guys that run like a gram or 2 of Masteron into the show. And of course it's,
800 is standard. I would say 800 standard.
Yeah. But the guys that run like 2 or 3 grams of Masteron, and of course they're peeled and they're super, they got a great look. But I think you can get the job done with a gram of Masteron and just throw in some of these compounds for just mitochondrial efficiency of fat burning. And then of course the stack is going to be way more complicated. Like look at my stack. It's like 25 fucking compounds.
Yeah.
But it's all quite low dosages, and you would assume that even though the overall tolerance to drugs is high, based on each individual compound, it's you shouldn't expect too much side effects or negative effects.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe this SLU-PP-332 can actually help with kidney health and heart health based on the models that I've seen. So blood work will show a month from now, before I go to the Mr. Olympia, if certain markers improved or not.
Well, I had bloods done with the SLU probably back in June, I think was the last that I'd done. Obviously halfway into prep, as to speak, and liver enzymes were perfect. The only thing that was a little bit skewed was inflammation, because at the time I was having gut problems from not realizing I was lactose intolerant, and that was flagging up on the blood work. But everything looked as it normally was for me. So I mean, the sort of benignness to it. You can't promote safety, but N=1 blood work looked okay. So it'd be interesting to see the more people who utilize it, do their own blood work, seeing what correlations come. Because obviously that's how we've gained insights into the health detriments of AAS, is from, years upon years of blood work being gathered and the correlations made, whether it's the literature or even anecdote or coaching. You start to see all these patterns, and then you can develop, obviously, across to the model of why those things happen.
Yeah, I saw a lot in the comment section of the previous podcast, a lot of people mentioning their experiences with SLU. And since the last podcast, I get a lot of questions, but also a lot of messages on where to source this stuff. So you send them, by email. I'm sure there'll be a lot of guys asking for sources after this. That's all right. We got discount codes. Don't worry, we got your back. But I think, once I really drop that deep dive on SLU, then we'll get some clear anecdotal responses underneath. And then all we can see is just how the industry is responding, because I do think that this stack of methylene blue and SLU is a game changer. It's going to be a game changer for a lot of people. So again, kudos to you, Dean, for being the first one. Yeah, because it's difficult to bring something new, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of new stuff out there.
No, I remember when I started talking about semaglutide and tirzepatide, and even though the blue collar bodybuilders are like, fuck this shit, you need to control your appetite. It is a game changer for a lot of people. And I know many pros that are using it right now, and they're also in a good mood. I had to add in the tirzepatide though, because this methylene blue and SLU and mirabegron combination made me freaking hungry.
Oh, wow.
Uncontrollable. I was thinking about food all day, and it's like, why am I thinking about food when I need to think about making money or doing research?
Well, that's good to know. Because I see, right, there's a very common link between the appetite being disordered and people that struggle with fat loss. So it might not be the best compound for someone that really struggles with appetite to begin with.
Right. So you either throw in the tirzepatide, retatrutide, or semaglutide, whatever you prefer, or the tesofensine. Dean?
Yeah,
There you go.
Last week, so I've yet to do a social post on the last week's fast. So obviously we talked about the milk protein allergy added 70 pounds of fluid to me on holiday. And when I got back, I was like that. And when I took pictures, I literally, and I shared it in the group of you guys, it looked like I'd done about 6 weeks of dieting in the space of 3 with all the fluid that washed off. Yeah. And I knew it was fluid. I could see my weight going up. And I said to Morgan, that's the milk protein that I'm eating. But when you're on vacation and you're trying to we hired bikes. Imagine trying to cycle a bike for 2 hours with, no fat in your glutes. So I was sort of happy that there was a bit of cushioning. But I knew from a visual perspective that this needs to be taken care of. So easiest way, just do a fast. Let your gut deal with the inflammation and clear it out. Yep. So I got tesofensine, and for 3 of the days of the 86-hour fast, it was 4.5 days, I took 500 micrograms upon wake. My God, I have never experienced for one thing, the brain clarity, because it's coming at your brain angle from basically being a dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So you've got pretty much the 3 main, neurotransmitters to speak, raised in your brain. So first off, you've got no appetite, because, in terms of when you get deep into a fast, you get sort of into 36 hours into a long fast, your appetite just disappears. And, when you break, normally what I say is when you get to about hour 40, 42, when your liver starts burning off the last bit of glycogen, once you get over that hurdle, your appetite is gone. Unless you have severe food focus, mental disordered eating, your appetite goes. Once you're into proper sort of ketosis, you don't think about food, or you have no inclination to eat unless you really desire it. at that point, the Tesofensine just took over, and mentally, complete stimulation to your brain from the dopamine aspect. The serotonin had you feeling content. The norepinephrine had you feeling calm. It was just, I can see why people are, caution against the use of it. Definitely something that I would not take every single day, and probably not even multiple times per week. But it was an experience, to say the least.
Did you combine it with methylene blue, or one or the other?
No, I just stuck with Teso for that day. You'd be tempted to think, okay, well, what happens if I had another layer of,
I would advise against it.
So, and that's why, even when things like this become available, you really need to understand, how your brain potentially may cope with it, or what's going to happen when you take these things. So it's great that we speak about these things, but there's always the air of caution that some of it is intrigue, like with retatrutide. I took retatrutide last year after we trialed it with Morgan, and I seen all this sort of appetite suppression with Morgan. I thought, well, let's see what happens if a bodybuilder utilizes it. And after 4 weeks, again, I lost 6% body weight, but my appetite, and I have a story highlight on Instagram of the few weeks that I tried it. That again was just intrigue. Oh, here's a new class of molecules that comes at the 3 different receptors. It's great when you sort of look at things, and this is why I often said, you can look at all the mechanisms, you can, in theory, apply these things, but unless you practically use something, you can't really speak on experience of how it's actually going to affect someone. So it's not to be a guinea pig, but it's more intrigue of, well, what's that going to do, and the curiosity. So the Tesofensine bottle is sitting on my shelf there with whatever it is, 27 capsules still in the 30 capsule tub. So that's going to sit there, for a while. It's not something that I'm going to reach for every day or every week. That it was interesting to see how it would aid with a fast, and it done exactly what I thought it would do without having to use like a GLP agonist or a GIP like tirzepatide or retatrutide. But again, you've got the other side. We'll get probably into it with Trenbolone and stuff like that. If you start adding these things in where you're preventing dopamine reuptake, and you've got something that's amplifying dopamine even more, you could be setting yourself up for chaos, put it lightly.
Yeah, I can imagine. What I did like about Tesofensine is that it's acute, whereas with tirzepatide and retatrutide, it takes some time to build up. So if you do decide to do a fast after a holiday, for example, to kind of clean out and reset your intestinal tract and get rid of all the bloating and the dirty food that you had, then this is probably a better solution, because 2 or 3, maybe 4 days, it's reasonably doable. There's no withdrawal after that. Obviously, if you take it every day in combination with Trenbolone, there might be issues. But if you kind of need to reset and have quick appetite suppression, instead of doing the melanotan 2 or the Adderall, it might be better just to do Tesofensine for a few days. But for long-term appetite suppression, I would still prefer retatrutide or tirzepatide, because the GIP and the glucagon might have some overlapping fat loss benefits, which you don't get with Tesofensine. And again, long-term use can be, the withdrawal symptoms kind of bad.
Dean, how low are you bringing your calories before appetite gets really crazy?
For me, well, currently now I'm on 3,400 training day, and rest day is at 3,200.
Okay. And what are you calculating maintenance at?
Before we sort of came into this diet phase, I was holding like 92, 93 kilos, so at 205, 206 on 4,200. So when we sort of came into this prep with Callum, I told him this is what I'm eating currently. I'm holding this body weight pretty consistently. So we dropped it down about 700, 800 calories. Okay. And we've not had to drop my calories at all this prep, if you want to even call it that way. That we haven't had to steps have stayed at 10,000 steps all the time, 20 minutes cardio. So everything that sort of helped throughout this prep of me getting leaner and leaner is the mitochondrial efficiency stack, if you want to put it that way, as opposed to let's take a sledgehammer and force my body to burn body fat. But I guess I have been extremely lean in the past that, my set point for body fat loss is quite low anyway, that it doesn't take much to coax me back down to what I've lost in the past. And I didn't really gain much fat between like retiring and this new prep, that there wasn't any new sort of adipocytes that had to be trained to lose their body fat. So I'm probably in a lucky case that, better efficiency. And so I could get away with eating more. Because I mean, my weight this morning was 85 kilos, which is, I think, 180 something pounds. Tell you now, exactly. I never know what
maybe I should increase my calories then also, because I'm still eating like 2,800.
It's probably low for you, Steve, at your size.
It's very low. It's very low.
That's why I was curious, like, if you guys were starving.
I'm starving.
No, I mean like physically starving. Like your calories, 1,200 calories or something.
Yeah. Oh, no.
187 is what I weighed this morning.
You look great at 187.
And, 3,400, 3,200. And the fact that, most days I'll fast, like I still haven't eaten today, and it's 2:45 UK time in the afternoon. I'll start eating, like I only eat 4 meals a day. So I'll start eating once we're finished with this up until bedtime. And so, there's no food focus. It's a lot of food to keep me sort of going and keep me happy. It's pretty good position, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm still starving even with the tirzepatide. On 2,800 calories, but I've always been a big eater. Like I can easily put away 6,000 calories during the off season every day and not be phased about it. Okay, I'll be full, but I have appetite. I've always had appetite. Everybody in my family has appetite. That's where they're all large, but the wrong kind of large. So for me, it was always easy to put on size. And then again, if I eat for a couple of days in a row, I just put all my old muscle memory mass back. And then I kind of need to, clean out again and reset. So for me, usually getting lean has always been a bit of a struggle because of the appetite and the requirement to really drop my calories down. So hopefully with this new combination, I can get there easier. But yeah, I need to use some tirzepatide to kind of keep everything under control, because otherwise I just overeat on the weekends. And I still have dinners and, meetings that I need to attend and birthdays. And, after... Of course, I take the bodybuilding less serious, but since some of these meetings are entrepreneur related, I'm not going to bring Tupperware.
No,
I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it anymore, man.
No.
So and the weird thing is, like, I hold a good amount of water in this combination of growth hormone and mirabegron. I think the mirabegron might potentiate a little bit of water retention to the beta-3 adrenergic receptor on the kidneys. But I know that dropping the mirabegron and the growth hormone before I went to Dubai, the difference in water weight was substantial.
Interesting.
Substantial.
How much growth are you on again?
Still 10 before bed.
I mean, there's water retention from that obviously as well.
Yeah. So I'm about 240, 242 now, end of the day. And I'll probably drop 10, 12 pounds, maybe put in a little bit of size. So I'll probably be like 230, 235 at the Mr. Olympia.
Okay.
Which is pretty big.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
It's pretty big. It's going to be fun. Dean, are you coming, Dean, or no? You're not sure yet?
We're, with the new building with supplement needs, we're looking at maybe around that time for go launch. So it's still on the fence. I would like to even fly over and spend 3 days and then fly back. So I need to.
If you can come on Thursday, we got already a table booked at Bavette's.
Nice.
So that's in the private room, because Paul has so much social anxiety that he's like, I need the private room. So we got that booked. And then we got booth 201.
Yep.
So basically when you come into the expo on the left side, the first booth that you see there, small booth, that will be Chase Arons and friends. So that's me, Kurt Havens, Paul Burnett, Chase Arons, and then Joel Hansen, who's a competitive eater. That's basically our booth. And what is it? Ryan Root is also contributing. Yep. Yeah, Ryan Root. So 5 of us.
Colton will probably be there as well.
Colton will come. And then Aaron, my friend from Thailand here, will join in. So I think we'll just have like an entourage of big, juicy dudes. And Colton. No, I'm joking.
And Colton. I need to bring my weight up to hang with.
Yeah, but you'll be short and dense, right? So that's also juicy. And then let's see who else comes, because I invited a couple IFB Pro watchers, so there might be some IFB Pros coming in here and there to join in on the festivities. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Very excited. Hey, Kurt, you just finished a pretty cool cycle. I know you don't go into dosages, but can you break it down a little bit, and then maybe we can transition to this trend talk?
Yeah. So I've been spending, since I'm not competitive anymore, I've been spending time playing with different compound combinations so I can more effectively leverage stuff with my guys to figure out what seems to work. I mean, everybody's still different, right? And especially dosage-wise. I can tolerate a lot more dosage than most guys do. But I wanted to see what different things would do. And I kind of netted out with Tren and Anadrol, test as a base. And as an anabolic, I pulled a bunch of different extra anabolics in there and pulled them out over some time just to see what felt the best, what looked the best, what gave me the best look. And I tried to keep every other metric the same, the cardio, the food, everything else. So there was no other variable that would contribute to it. And I actually ended up with Masteron, believe it or not. I think it kind of cut some of the water from the test. And I ended up bringing the test much lower. I found with me, when I run, it's almost like from the GH15 days. Like I almost do better with the higher androgens, like Tren, and lower test than I do with the higher test. Like everyone else now is running super high test and then adding stuff to it. The side effects were much worse. I think my mood was not good with the high test in there. I mean, it's probably not doing a whole lot at it, right? My levels were pretty high. So I can't imagine the test is doing a whole lot in there outside of aromatizing, right? And hitting other receptors.
Do you think that because Trenbolone has such a high binding affinity for the androgen receptor, that it's probably preventing testosterone from binding, and thus you get a lot of aromatization and DHT conversion, and you know, so this is what been on the boards for years now, right? Where you drop the test dose down when the Trenbolone dose and the Masteron dose is going up. Obviously, you would have low estrogen levels, but during prep, maybe. I mean, Trenbolone interacts with the estrogen receptor and the progesterone receptor at various affinities. So maybe you get some estrogen-like and progesterone-like effects.
My test was still at 600, so it's hardly a low dose of test.
Right, yeah.
Just in relation to the doses of the other things. So I was using more than 600 milligrams of everything else. Because most guys on the forums would say, like, we're going to drop the test to 150, which is fine. That's what I'm doing, but I'm not running, you know, a gram of Tren or 700 Tren or 350 Tren.
With my
I can't.
125.
I haven't run below 300 tests in a decade, so I don't even know what 150 would do.
You probably feel miserable.
Yeah, so I'm not. 150 is not a number for me. I don't know. Thought it was cool. There's definitely some synergy between the Anadrol and the Tren, right? I mean, that's been shown. They just one is indirect with the AR, one is not, and they definitely seem to magnify each other. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool, right? And D-ball would do something similar. I just don't love the look. I don't need the water.
Yeah, and you get the methyl estradiol, and you have to deal with that. And of course, that promotes maybe a little bit of water retention and maybe inhibits fat loss further.
And blood pressure and
No, I like Anadrol and Tren together. That was always one
so it was
of my 100
milligrams.
combos.
It was 100 milligrams of Anadrol a day, which didn't actually affect my lipids. The 50 doesn't seem strong enough anymore at this point, right? I think we all get to a certain point in our bodybuilding career that the doses have to go up in order to get a response, unless you do what you did, where you came basically off for years and then reintroduce stuff. And you can basically get a new effect. But for me, 100 seemed like the sweet spot. 150 kind of killed my appetite. I didn't do labs on 150. I just didn't love 150. But 100 seemed like a perfect, split twice a day.
Did you do that just oral conventionally, all before bed, sublingual, injectable?
Oral. No, I honestly stick to the classic. I kind of follow the way all these drugs were designed. I take them the way they were all designed, right? Like I inject oils, I inject peptide SubQ, and I swallow pills like a big boy.
Shots fired.
But you saw my lipids. Oh, my lipids were great. My liver function was great.
Were fine. Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, my doctor always wants to bust my balls because I tell him when I do, and then he sees the stuff and he's like, I would love to say something. I really can't say anything.
It's good. Well, if it's working, it's working. Yeah. And you ended up super diced, super lean, and full as a house.
Yeah, that's the goal. So now I'm going to bring the weight up a little more because now I got to hang with guys like you. So I went from
I'm not as big as you think.
From just under 220 to 202.
Mm-hmm.
202 is pretty close to stage shape for me, like similar to what Dean was looking like. And then I'm back to like 210. The condition's holding, so it's working. I'll just cruise on some tests for a while, and then I'll probably add something in, give myself a couple weeks, just test, and then figure out what the next plan is.
It seems that with tests, it's like, I think you can only stack it with Masteron or Bordelone or Primo at higher dosages, but as soon as test is high, you stack it with Nandrolone, Tren.
It gets weird.
Testosterone, then it gets nasty. Or Anadrol. So I've done 2.5 gram test cycles, but that was solo. Test GH insulin, best cycles ever, right?
Yep, I agree.
And of course, you get some diminishing returns as the dose goes up, but then you start training twice per day, and the diminishing returns turn into positive returns again. So you kind of have to adjust your training protocol and your diet accordingly. Yep. But as soon as the Tren comes in and the other stuff, you kind of need to make sure that the test dose comes down. And we discussed that with Wesley Vissers on one of the podcasts, right? That, as you come into the show, maybe the test dose goes down a little bit, DHTs goes up, and that has worked for many a competitor over the last couple of decades to kind of do it that way instead of just, throwing in the letrozole at the end and then flattening out. There's multiple ways to kind of skin it. Did you notice any bad side effects on the combination of Tren, Masteron, Anadrol?
Only when I had the test. So originally the test was at 1200.
Yeah,
I was at 300 every other day. The sleep was disrupted, right? Which I initially thought was Trenbolone, but it didn't seem to be. Again, I have a very high tolerance for Tren, so it doesn't really cause side effects noticeably, at least now. I mean, I think the first time I used Tren, I think I was throwing things around the house and yelling at everyone. I feel pretty much nothing on it now, but I think what was most likely happening is, like you said, the Tren is basically occupying the classic AR, right, and doing its thing. And the test is then either hitting, the surface receptor or something and causing non-genomic responses you just don't want, right? And that was probably stimulating my brain too much at night.
Yeah, and then of course, if you have the Anadrol in there, which also potentiates a good amount of non-genomic responses,
it's all non-genomic.
occupying those pathways.
And we don't get with the genomic androgen receptor, with the classic, when it releases from the heat shock protein actually goes to the cell surface and basically blocks estrogen as well. Mm-hmm. So you have a double effect. And if the test isn't hitting that receptor and it's going to the cell surface one, there's no heat shock protein. So you're kind of getting a double whammy with the estradiol as well. Right. So you're not blocking it, and it's going to aromatize more readily.
So if you're running Tren at pretty high dosages and combining it with Anadrol, but you don't have any side effects, you clearly have some secrets to share. And that's what I wanted to get into. Like, how can we run Trenbolone without any side effects? So for me, the solution was to take the pussy dose of 25 milligrams per week, SubQ, and I barely have any side effects. My irritability is slightly increased. Could be from dieting, could be from taking the SSRIs out, or by adding in the Tren. But at 25 milligrams per week, which basically was the dose where you get the highest anabolic to androgenic dissociation for my body weight and the maximum amount of glucocorticoid receptor inhibition, so I get all the anti-catabolic benefits at this dose. So this is the dose that I'm running where I get benefits and no side effects. Now, that doesn't sound appealing to everybody because they want more of the benefits without the side effects, because Tren does start to shine when you go to 150, 175, 350.
I mean, the original data was showing like 100 milligrams a day of acetate was really like where muscle growth was maximized with it. Now, guys nowadays kind of shy. Outside of like competitors, guys tend to shy away from that stuff. Yeah. But if the low dose stuff is working for you, then
we do have a lot of competitors watching. Yeah, some of them are competing at the Mr. Olympia, so they would like to know how the fuck can we get away with 100 milligrams Trenbolone acetate per day and then not get any of the side effects?
Well, some of the guys in the Olympia stage are running. Some of them are running 2 to 250 acetate a day.
Yeah,
so something that Dean and I did a video about, the magnesium, increasing my magnesium at bed made a huge impact on not just side effects from Trenbolone, but just in general sleep quality. And I think something else I've done is I split my GH dose up where the large bolus of it is at night. So I'm doing 6 IUs or would that be? So 2 milligrams of Serostim at night. I should be talking about growth hormone in milligrams, like it's classically discussed, and 1 milligram in the morning. And the 2 milligrams at night, I sleep like a rock. So it probably offsets anything that I would feel from the Trenbolone anyway, because I don't remember. Within 30 minutes of injecting, I can't keep my eyes open. And then the next thing I remember is my alarm going off.
So now we got the sleep quality covered. And of course, that is very important for, preventing amyloid plaque buildup, because you have adequate melatonin release, which seems to mitigate some of the amyloid plaque buildup. Again, it's only 1 or 2 studies in animal models that show amyloid plaque buildup in Trenbolone. But that could contribute, obviously, to Alzheimer's disease formation and maybe impair moods. But it's also the sleep quality that kind of ruins your mood if you don't sleep well for a multitude of days in a row. I mean, that happens without Tren. You don't sleep well, your mood just turns to shit. So the sleep quality management on Trenbolone is very important. The way I always overcome it is by doing daily subcutaneous microadministrations in the morning. Okay. So when you do take Trenbolone acetates, the bulk of the androgenic signaling in the central nervous system stimulation and maybe dopaminergic effects are kind of tapering down by the time you go to bed. So I found that to work. And even when I ran 50 milligrams per day, even 150 milligrams per day, daily SubQ shots or daily intramuscular shots in the morning, that seemed to mitigate some of the sleep impairment at night.
They also, in the rat studies with Tren, again, cows and rats and humans metabolize Tren differently. We're much more similar to a cow in that case with the metabolites. But it seems that when testosterone was added to the Trenbolone, it seems to offset a lot of that plaque buildup. Whether it's testosterone itself or it's some level of estrogen, I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that. I think that's still something that's worth looking into. So again, right, because half the Trenbolone studies in cattle were done and rats were done Trenbolone solo, like most studies, right? They're using one drug and they're seeing an effect. When they actually tried to use testosterone with it, it seemed to alleviate a lot of that.
Yeah, and in many of these studies, the rats or the cattle were castrated. So there's zero estrogen and zero testosterone. And of course, how much of an effect does that have? I mean, no one knows. I think most people don't run Trenbolone solo. I'm sure there's some outliers out there. But most of us would be smart enough to have a testosterone base and a good amount of aromatization. And how many of us have done a brain biopsy where we can see amyloid plaque buildup after? I mean, I need my brain cells, as little as I have left. To see if there's any problem there.
I was reading something there recently, and when we if you castrate someone, so if we reduce total testosterone synthesis, let's say we reduce it like 95% with castration, a function of testosterone still is there about 45%. So you've still got that intracrine creation of testosterone from the precursors, from androstenedione, DHEA.
Adrenals.
So from the adrenals, or even tissue conversion, muscle cell conversion through the dehydrogenase enzymes, that even if you run these things solo, you're probably still making some level of intracrine testosterone naturally.
And DHT, right? There's a backdoor method of DHT from progesterone. The body's very capable of making things in its absence.
Yeah,
I think
so that kind of covers the sleep quality then. But sleep, of course, we also have the terrible night sweats. And that seems to be the most common issue that most. I mean, I have night sweats now, but I know how to mitigate it.
What's your sensitive estradiol? Do you know?
No, I don't have sensitive estradiol here in Thailand. My regular estradiol is about 40, 45.
Okay, so it's not high. I was wondering if it were related to estrogen, similar to menopause, like a hypothalamus. It also could be the prostaglandin response. A Trenbolone causes a PGE2 response, right? That's one of the satellite cells from Trenbolone come from. It's why it's going to generate satellite cells better than other drugs is from that response. That response also can give you a fever.
Yeah, and that could be from lowering thyroid binding globulins by increasing free thyroid hormones.
As it's also helping, right? It's blocking estrogen conversion. It's probably doing multiple things at once. I don't get the sweats anymore. I think some of that also might be dependent on diet, right? If your calories are super low for you, it seems to do funnier things with your body. Like my sweat, like when you diet really hard on Tren, you start to smell ammonia, right? Like if you eat an abundant amount of food on Tren, it doesn't seem to have the same level of side effects.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing that I read years ago, I was just trying to remember there from my notes, is when I looked into it, androgens will improve, well, I can't say improve, it'll enhance the sensitivity of the thermoreceptors on the surface of your skin. So obviously with core temperature regulating, and obviously probably the T4 to T3 increased conversion. So we know again, androgens increase their conversion rate. So now you've got more T3 and you've got more sensitive thermoreceptors on the surface of your skin. You've also got better fatty acid oxidation from, brown adipose tissue. Now all of a sudden you've got this mixture of enhanced thermoreceptivity. So now you're going to sweat more to try and cool the body down. You've got a higher metabolic efficiency from thyroid hormone. And it seems to be obviously that those thermoreceptors are, I guess, estrogen sensitive to an aspect. So with Trenbolone having a very similar structure to estradiol, that was the only sort of mechanism I could get into years ago when I looked into it. And it seems to be a similar sort of mechanism of how like something like capsaicin induces sweating.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
When you look at the two structures, capsaicin is very similar to estradiol as well. Those thermoreceptors on the surface of your skin just become amplified.
Might there be some overlap through the estrogen-related receptors that SLU-PP-332 works on? That wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, not that I remember reading anything about that, but, structurally, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, in theory. I mean, the sweating aspect, the way I always I'd recommend getting around it is you can sort of lower core body temperature with a cold shower before bed. So by that point, you're forcing your body to regulate your core temperature before you go to sleep. The other thing with like cold exposure before bed is you'll induce a catecholamine dump rather than during the middle of the night. So sometimes guys wake up in the middle of the night on prep because the adrenals have offloaded a load of stored catecholamine and cortisone into the system, that you wake up at 2-3 a.m. Whether it's because blood sugars dipped a little bit or whether the body's just dumping adrenaline into the system, that having cold exposure, cold shower, shaking, that thermogenesis following the exposure, you're using up norepinephrine and adrenaline that's stored in order to bring your temperature back up again. So I wouldn't say do the cold shower, straight before bed. Do about 90 minutes before going to sleep. So that way, by the time you go to bed, you'll have regulated your core temperature, that you're not going to have those issues when you're lying in bed. But like the other thing about it is very simple: is just sleep naked. That's the when guys wear pajamas or bed clothes, your duvet is important. The core temperature, is going to respond to that. The temperature of the room, like silly little things like that. If you sleep naked with no sheets on top of you, your body has no choice but to regulate its temperature. You're never going to get overheat because you have a big massive blanket on top of you. But again, it depends on the temperature of your room and what I guess your sleep onset association is as well. Like naturally, I learned to sleep with, not much blanket on top of me. I'm happy to go to sleep with nothing, duvet over me. But for guys who find it difficult, they might not fall asleep if there's no blanket on top of them. So, but that's another thing on top of the cold shower is just, not wearing any bedclothes.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't worn any bedclothes for 20 years since I living in Thailand. So I didn't even think that it was an after, that people still wear bedclothes. Of course, in Europe and other colder climates, people do have that thick blanket that's like this big. And yeah, it would make sense that you would retain all your body temperature underneath those blankets, and then sweat buckets. That's what I remember from my first Tren cycle. I did Tren Initiate at 300 milligrams a week on my first Tren cycle, and then you have this thick European blanket, and you go to the bathroom and it's completely soaked. The mattress is soaked, the blanket is soaked, and the pillow is soaked. You go to the bathroom, and then you come back into this cold bed that's wet. It was horrible.
Even like people changing the tog like that, having a summer duvet and a winter duvet. Some people just have one duvet that's on the bed year round. So that's another thing, don't oversee or, don't oversight is changing your duvet between the seasons. Yeah. Something simple like you're not paying attention to.
I think that the biggest takeaway here for the sweating is that if you get like your body fat levels down, so you have something, you don't have to radiate through all these layers of fat, that saves a lot. So you start Tren when you're lean. I mean, how many people fall off on this subject alone because they want to use Tren to get lean? And they use it at 15% body fat. Of course, you're going to get night sweats. What do you expect?
Yeah.
You're fat. All this heat needs to radiate through these layers of fat. You know, you protect your body from radiating too much, but if you're too hot, you're also just retaining all this heat. And then if you're laying under a thick blanket, that doesn't help. So I think if you take the Tren in the morning and you're lean from 10% body fat downwards, and you use a body blanket that is like basically like a beach towel. So it absorbs the sweat if you do sweat, but it also permeates air. So what I have is like this giant beach towel that's just a body blanket. It's very porous, and I have basically a fan that doesn't make any noise, certainly not as noisy as the fan outside of Dean's house. I don't know what that is, but don't worry, we'll fix it in post-production. So I have like just a 0 decibel fan at the foot end of my bed, and it's just blowing like on the first or maybe the second intensity. It's just blowing air through this body blanket, this body towel, and this allows me to cool down. Throughout the hottest climate in Thailand. Of course, I have air conditioning, climate control in my room also, but that kind of blows over the head. So it blows into the fan, then it blows over my body. And that's basically the best climate control I can do. You also have these mattresses that can have climate control. Yep. I'll link one down below. Derek More Plates More Dates sends me one because that has like dual climate control. Of course, it's a couple $1,000, but it can climate control for your girlfriend or wife at a different temperature than it does for you. And that's apparently a game changer. Yeah, it's a couple $1,000. It's shipping within the US is doable, but I recommended this to a couple guys that run Tren. They're pretty high. They're financially secure, and the wife is like just sleeping at a nice, comfortable temperature. And then on the guy's side, it's like almost frozen, just to keep his core body temperature down. And then he's got this fan blowing over him, and he's like, "Man, this is the best sleeper I ever had. I didn't sweat one single drop." So
I'll go back to the drug thing for 1 second, because I feel like a lot of the audience probably just wants a steroid answer to the Trenbolone, how to mitigate the sides. I would just say something I just see is everyone follows trends all the time, right? So we talked like GH15, like back then it was high Tren, low test, and now everyone's high test and then whatever primo and whatever people are doing. I think it's very important to experiment with yourself and figure out what doses work for you, and not just follow what everyone else is doing, right? Just because, like Chase will run 3 grams of test, that doesn't mean that everyone needs to run 3 grams of test. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it either. It also doesn't mean that just because you have a large population that's this modified TRT thing, but it's not even a TRT dose, right? Like there's a huge population of guys that I deal with that are running 100 milligrams of test and then one at an anabolic, maybe out of fear or out of lack of knowledge. Maybe it's about experimenting with things. Bring the test up and see how you feel, or just play with things instead of just following whatever this mantra is that you're reading on Instagram. So, everybody's body's different. Like the three of us run totally different amounts of things. Right? And the result is very similar. It doesn't mean that,
Yeah, we all look jacked. And we're in a good mood. So at least we're doing something right, even though the protocols are different. No, I agree. The starting point for me was also very basic. But of course, now we're 15 years into my drug journey and I have a YouTube channel where I talk about drugs. So my stacks are not complicated. Doesn't mean you have to do that.
No, definitely not. No, I think the question
it's a learning point,
I think the question with anything, right? If you're in the gym and you're lifting and a newer person comes up to you and wants to talk to you about training and gear and all these things, I think the question they always ask is, what are you doing? It's not what you're doing now. It's what you did when you were their size to get you there, right? Like it doesn't matter how any of us train now. I don't necessarily train now like I did 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's changed, but what I did to get to that point, what do I eat now is very different from what I ate when I was 150 pounds.
True.
Right? Like I can tolerate a lot more food and more cheat meals and things like that I couldn't when I was younger and smaller. And so I think it's asking the right questions too. It's not mimicking what a pro is doing. It's not mimicking what a TRT guy's doing. Maybe it's just figuring out playing with yourself and seeing, not playing with yourself, playing with your doses and things.
It's okay
to see what.
So
or you can
Tren,
blame yourself
okay.
too. On Tren, only on Tren.
I mean, only on Tren. So what you said earlier, where you were doing some self-experimentation to figure out a higher truth for protocols that you want to run your clients, I'm all for it, man. But like us three have clients, and we did bodybuilding prep coaching, and then we have many bodybuilders that we're in touch with, in touch with. Oh, I touch them, but it's only for protein.
It's remote, it's remote.
Yeah, it's remote. Yeah,
it's remote.
So, yeah. So, man, I lost my thread.
Lots of bodybuilders prepping for shows.
Yeah, the prepping for shows, right? So we experiment on ourselves to kind of come to a higher truth. But if you're not in that demographic, then yeah, just play it safe. I want to give a shout out to your client, José, who lives in Thailand. So you coached him from natural to his first cycle.
Yep. And been a year now.
It's been a year now. So he did phenomenal, bringing up the carbs, eating a lot of food, increasing in training intensity and training volume. And then you put him on a test cycle, super low dose. And of course, then he watches my YouTube channel. I'm sure he watches this podcast because he loves the Anabolic Roundtable. And then he asked me, what about SLU? What about methylene bloom? Like, run it past Kurt first because it's probably not required for where we're at because he made stellar gains.
Oh, he's got
stellar progress.
He's got some great genetics.
And fucking work ethic.
Oh,
because he fucking kills it in the gym. I see him there at BPC Fitness. And shout out to Jose for having an amazing Korean restaurant. I went there last Saturday. He invited me. And Kurt, if you come to Thailand, you got to eat there.
I will be in Thailand and Bali next summer in June. I think I'm going out with him. Yeah, to Bali.
I'm going to Bali also. When there's a seminar, I'll meet you there.
Yep.
Yeah. It's so come to Thailand also. The restaurant that he has, he's been inviting me for like a year or something. I'm like, yeah, I'll come next time. So now it's like, okay, I'll come have a look. Dude, I should have come earlier because the food quality is so good. My God, it's amazing. Yeah,
he's a perfectionist. I don't think he does. He doesn't do anything like half-ass.
No, exactly. Yeah, like you said, he does everything 100%. So the restaurant 100%, the cycle. And training and bodybuilding 100% and realizing where he came from a couple of years ago. I mean, he's done very, very well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the gym that he's opening with a partner in Bali. We'll definitely do a seminar. We'll start promoting that on the Anabolic Roundtable.
Yeah, we should do that together. I didn't realize you were going.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if it's with Jose, it's only 4 or 6 hours away. So he sent me some pictures of the gym that they're doing and a previous seminar that they had at another gym with one of the co-owners of the gym that they're opening. So yeah, I'm all on board, man. I mean, if you can go there for a week and do a seminar, do some training camps, and then 2 weeks, and then do a little bit of a holiday attached. I'm excited.
I'll bring my wife and kids.
Yeah, I saw how much fun Dean was having in Dubai. I'm like, what? I need one of these seminars, and when am I going to get invited?
I'm supposed to be going to England as well, to the UK, to speak at a couple gyms as well in the next year.
Really? Okay.
So you and I can hook up for that.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, man.
Obviously, and then obviously we've got our big SM building that has a big education seminar space upstairs that we're dedicating. So again, we'll get the two of you across for a nice seminar within the building once that's all up and running.
Yeah, that would be cool, man, for sure. In-life stuff is always better than online, from what I've noticed. That's why I'm looking forward to the Mr. Olympia. It was so cool to meet Dean in Dubai because it's a whole different dynamic than just podcasting, even though our podcasting dynamic is fucking epic already after 4 episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it'd be really cool to see you in person.
For sure. Let's circle back to a couple more Tren subjects because people love Tren. So we got the insomnia covered, right? The sleep quality. We got the night sweats covered. Got the amyloid plaque buildup covered. What about the Tren rage and the Tren cough? How can we circumvent those things? Because the Tren cough, I mean, I circumvent by doing SubQ shots. You can also take Ventolin inhalers just to kind of open up the bronchioles, prevent these sudden inflammatory prostaglandins from really kicking your ass. And that's my solutions. Do you guys have other solutions to mitigate Tren cough? It might be in the brewing also.
Some. I mean, you hit a vein, it's going to do it. It's and it's only with acetate. I do like we were going to go into the SubQ and IM thing later, but I do find that could be a useful way to inject Trenbolone could be SubQ because you're going to avoid obviously hitting a vein, and you're probably going to slow the release down just enough. You're not going to get that dramatic level in the blood,
right?
So that could definitely be a good use, unless you're doing hundreds of milligrams a day.
Yeah,
that is a bit hard.
No,
Dean, you're doing like 10 milligrams 4 times a week, right?
Yeah,
that was your protocol.
That's what we're doing, and I mean, I sort of do like you, but it's a hybrid the way I explain it. It's like not SubQ, but not IM. It's a 30G, which is pretty much an insulin pin, and because it's only 0.1 of a mil volume, if you go into the bicep or the delt, you're sort of the needle depth is what, half an inch, so you're going between the two, where some of it, if you're very very lean, some of it's going into the tissue and some of it's going into the fat layer. That I still find probably I've not tried your SubQ way, which Kerr is agreeing, and I can definitely see that, because a couple of times with that hybrid way, I do sort of find where you can sort of taste, when you get the cough, but you can actually taste that a small amount has actually gone into the bloodstream to speak, or there's been something nicked. It's probably something that I might try to see if it removes that altogether. But I've always tried to figure out the reflex of what goes on there. In terms of the cough. Obviously, it's an excretory pathway, if you want to put it that way. But also, is there a level of physiology in terms of a receptor being activated, other than, sometimes you get guys who will have massive fits of cough where they have, absorbed quite a lot on the way in. But is, guys who are swearing that their injection technique is perfect and it's going in nice and slow, and then all of a sudden the coughing fit kicks in. There was, for a while, people were arguing it was the benzyl alcohol, it was the carrier oil. We've come to sort of rule those out, because it's a
micropulmonary embolism is what you're getting, right? So if you put in a vein and it goes in, and because the acetate ester, a lot of that is immediately deesterified and released into the blood immediately. And then because of that, you get the prostaglandin response, right? That's what the constriction occurs. Your body's trying to now get the oil out of the lung. If that, just a warning for other people, if you get that symptom from testosterone or something else, you need to go to a doctor and have an x-ray done in your lungs, because you'll get oil that can build up in there, which can be really dangerous. So that's a known thing. So people on TRT, even if they get that, it's rare, but you need to have an x-ray on your lungs done if you get that from something outside of trinacetate.
Because so I use a different brand of Tren compared to what I'm using now. Now I'm using an underground lab that seems to be quite reputable. And before I used homebrew Tren. And on the homebrew Tren, I got some vasoconstriction at 25 milligrams. This was in grapeseed oil. It was a lot darker, looked like a typical orangey urine color oxidized Tren. And this one is almost clear. This one is in MCT oil, which you probably don't need to heat, right? You just throw it in there, you shake it up, maybe a little bit of microwave, and then it's dissolved. So maybe in the grapeseed oil with a little bit of benzobenzoate, benzo alcohol, they needed to heat it, causing some sort of oxidation. Yeah, it's cooked, right? So
and it oxidizes on its own. As soon as if anyone's ever seen raw Tren, in a kilo, as soon as you open it, it stinks. It starts to interact with the oxygen immediately.
Oh,
it's an atrocious smell. So in a lab, when it's produced in a real laboratory, you have to wear a ventilator and stuff. You don't want to breathe this stuff in. It smells.
I will make a note that obviously we had the discussion over Dianolone. My Dianolone is in 3 Ziploc bags.
Because it stinks.
Oh, it's hard to. It's like a burnt sort of plasticky disinfectant smell. It's like you're saying about Tren. But it's very very potent. So it's kept well sealed.
The guys that brew, the underground labs that brew it, depending on their environment that they're brewing in, once they open the kilo to start making, you got to make it. You can't. It's not the kind of thing you can open and then put to the side and brew something else, because the smell is. People will, if you're anywhere near any other home or anything, it'll smell like you're cooking meth. It's disgusting. right? Because the other drugs don't really smell. This stinks.
I know. I mean, I remember smelling the Tren, and of course, what is it? That liquid, the Guaiacol, that they used to produce injectable Anadrol. That you can smell through the vial also. But no, I never got into the business
puncture
of
the bottle with that. Stinks.
Yeah, you're just like, what the fuck is this? And you inject it, and you're like, this was not a good idea.
No.
Of course, the pumps are crazy from injectable Anadrol, but I don't know. I have a couple of rounds of that, and so my inflammatory markers just go to 1,000. I was like, you know what, never mind.
No.
It's not worth the health complication.
That's probably similar to what's occurring with DHB. So we see a lot of health issues from DHB, and it might not be the DHB itself. It could be because of the Guaiacol use. So when DHB is produced, it's usually made. It was discovered by accident. It was an intermediate between equipoise and primobolan in the production of primobolan. And DHB is not liquid at room temperature, depending on the volume of the container that it's in, which is very odd too that it defies standard chemistry. So it'll be liquid in a beaker, in a wide mouth beaker. And if you pour it into it, if you then draw it out and you put it in a 10 ml bottle, it turns to gel. And so you have to add, and you can't get 50 milligrams to hold. So when a lot of these underground labs will sell DHB at 50 milligrams, I have a question if it's really 50 milligrams or what has been added to it in order to get it liquefied. So it's probably the Guaiacol and stuff. If these guys are using this stuff, if they're injecting this daily, it's going to destroy your kidneys.
Yeah. And your liver enzymes. This is where the liver issues
ALT.
came from.
I saw an ALT of 3,000 from a guy on DHB for a year. 29 years old. 3,000.
Wow.
3,000. You thought Trenbolone was bad.
Yeah. And it's not, you're not actually getting that much DHB from EQ either, because most of it's 5-beta reduced and not 5-alpha.
Yeah. I remember I went back and forth with Dean about this, like how much potentially would convert. And it was like, well, it's less
very
than
low.
Testosterone converts to DHT significantly less.
Very low.
And that conversion's actually based on the assumption of what we know with the Anabol, considering the Anabol is oral EQ, if you want to put it that way. But it's a very small amount in rats. And I mean, our best friend tried to argue with me one time until I was like, 5-beta reductase is a different enzyme to 5-alpha
Totally
reductase.
different enzyme. Yeah,
EQ is a fascinating biochemistry for that stuff. And
so much so, I done a deep dive on the mechanism of 5-alpha reductase on our education website of how it does the reduction.
Okay.
So looking at the papers of how it does the reduction on the ring. So, but like that with DHB, definitely not something I've ventured down the road of. I think, considering what I know what Kurt's saying as well about how it's brewed, it's just one that I don't think it's an acceptable risk. But you get guys who want to try it, and by all means, like we sort of said, if you want to go experiment on yourself, but sky's the limit. But it's one that I think there's other routes.
Yeah, from a chemistry point of view, DHB is that drug that when it's synthesized again as an intermediate, chemists look at it like it's garbage. It's like a SARM that you would throw out. It's the junk that gets chucked. Some idiot janitor walked in the building, saw that, and was like, I wonder if I inject that, what's going to happen?
Well, it's the least studied steroid out there. It's one rodent study. Yeah. And maybe one more. Because I was researching it for a deep dive video. I'm like, I'm done in 10 minutes. This is great. I posted it online, said good luck, you figure it out. And now I'm still working on the Nandrolone video because it's like 3,000 studies. Yeah, it sucks. So can we kind of assume that when the Trenbolone is a little bit darker and oxidized, that it has more tendency for Tren cough? Because that rumor has been going around and it seems to be true.
It's, Dean, I'm at a loss of forgetting the term. The color is related to the structure of it, right? The way light passes through, because the bonds are all on one side. It's on the molecule.
Conjugation.
Yeah, so that's the color is largely related to the structure of the molecule. How it varies in color could definitely be from oxidation.
Yeah, I mean, I've never looked exactly. Oxidation is the loss of electrons, to put it that way, or the gaining of oxygen onto the molecule. So whether you oxidize one of those double bonds, you'd have to actually look at the metabolites. It's never been something that I've personally looked deep enough into, but what you're on about there in terms of the tree double bonds, conjugating that, as far as I remember, in terms of light emission, is somewhere below, I think, 300 nanometers. I think that's sort of why you see the color yellow reflecting. But I guess as you heat it up, that sort of cooked state, I have seen stuff like Steve has said where it can vary from like pale straw yellow all the way up to orange. Pretty much dark orange. And I guess purity of the raw cooking method, heating, I wouldn't say really solution chemistry, because there's nothing really in there other than heat and solvent. So there's nothing really interacting other than the air and the environment. Maybe, and this is again a far reach, depending on the sort of oven setup of what you're doing, what sort of outgassing from the oven as it heats up. If it's an old oven, again, you don't have any clue what sort of setup in these laboratories or bathrooms or kitchens, or however you want to say that. You know, there could be stuff outgassing as it's heating up that it's reacting with. But yeah, the color variance, people are like, "Oh, this is amazing Tren based on the color." It's like, well, that's really
not indicative.
You can't tell anything from the color other than maybe someone just completely heated it to shit.
Yeah. So I rather remember in the first episode that we did, we talked about the 5 or 8 steps of Trenbolone synthesis, starting with estradiol, remember? And then I think at the end it yielded like 99.7% or 99.5% purity. Maybe in one of these steps there's some impurities, which is causing or contributing to the Tren cough, because there were some serious chemicals being used. Can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I have it here.
We got this bookmarked, of course. Like, might there be some sort of chemicals in there that could cause some sort of
and impurities at the, I don't know what step it is because I don't have a number, but at the one step that's a 70% yield. So you are, it's not pure at a certain point in the middle, but then by the end you're at 99.6 of Trenbolone acetate. So it's possible that something else is occurring in the middle there that we just don't know. Right. And again, this isn't a perfect thing. Most of the rods are made in China in these gigantic, 50-gallon oil drums. The handling of these chemicals also is going to affect what we get as an end product, right? Because it's not like Merck is making, you're not buying it from Merck. So it's not necessarily handled in the cleanest fashion either.
Right.
It could be picking up metal. It could be picking up.
Yeah, maybe some of the impurities will then react with the benzoyl alcohol or benzobenzoate, because that's also quite reactive, especially when you heat it. Benzobenzoate degrades into benzoyl alcohol by itself in the human body. So maybe that's where it goes wrong. But yeah, I would say that a safe bet is a clearer Tren seems to potentiate less Tren cough than a darker Tren. Yeah. Because I have no bronchoconstriction right now. I mean, the injection protocol is exactly the same. But it's a different brand and a different oil.
But the SubQ should also help to a large degree with that.
But I did SubQ the last time also with this
and it still got the bronchoconstriction from it.
Yeah, after a week it's
interesting.
And it's or maybe it's a methylene blue.
It could be that. I don't know. You never know.
Interesting.
But I will say with the handling, most of the issues you see with underground lab gear is not in the raw, right? Because there's only a few places in the world that are producing those raws for most of these companies. The raws are the same, and the raws are generally good. It's the chemist that's making it is not handling correctly. That's the problem with Primo. Primo raw is Primo raw. It's from the same place. There are 7 pharmaceutical companies in the United States that are producing Primo from scratch. Those are not like a disclosed thing at the moment because it's probably something on the horizon with Primo being FDA approved again. But the stuff that most underground labs are using is all coming from the same factory. So it's all the same. It just, these guys are they're cooking it too high. Then they have to add more solvents to liquefy it again, right? That's where this pain is coming from. It's not filtered. I probably said that before. Gear needs to be filtered. It's filthy after it's brewed. You can't just bottle it. It's like Deca is disgusting. EQ is disgusting. Like you don't want to just bottle that stuff.
No, and then of course passing it through a Wattman filter with 2 microns, it takes forever. And maybe some of these labs are not willing to undergo that, or they don't have the equipment to kind of speed up that process.
And not even that, like filtering through beds of like zeolite or zeolite, where you're, if you do have heavy metal impurities, that was one thing that is often done with chemical synthesis. You filter organic solvent down through these beds of like atomaceous clay that catch the heavy metals within and let the solvent flow through. You've got none of these sort of chemist practices where they're assuming what's on the COA is what's on the COA without looking at what went on in the manufacturing setting.
Yeah. And then, of course, even if you send in your raws for third-party testing, they don't check for heavy metals.
No.
They check for purity of the listed compound.
It's quite different. Well, aside from mass spectrometry, it's very difficult to figure out, heavy metal presence without doing sort of assays for heavy metals on your liquid. So, when you do HPLC mass spec, where the HPLC peak is coupled to a mass spectrometer, that'll tell you what's sort of in that peak in terms of the actual molecular weight. But you need to assign peaks to everything that's in there. But the thing is, if there's heavy metals, when you run them down through column chromatography, you're probably going to start damaging the column running heavy metals down through it as well. So I guess someone who does have not heavy metal analysis, but purity analysis will soon enough be able to blame what labs aren't using the most pure thing, because they're going to be changing the liquid chromatography or gas chromatography column more often when it starts to cause sensitivity or retention issues based on heavy metals getting caught up in the column.
All right. So the only real solution is just daily SubQ. And keep the dosage somewhat moderate. Like the guys that you have, Kurt, that run like 1,000 milligrams or 100 milligrams per day or 250 even. Like how are they getting Tren cough? Are they mitigating that with Ventolin inhalers?
No, it seems that the guys that can run the really big doses just have a much better response to this stuff and a better tolerance. They don't seem to get side effects. Their labs look okay. It seems to be the guys with very low tolerance for drugs seem to get all of the worst side effects. Right? It seems to go hand in hand. It's the guy that can run, if he runs 10 milligrams of Tren, he gets horrible side effects. So the guy that runs 2 IUs of GH gets numb hands, right? It's the guy that can run a bottle that doesn't get anything. They don't seem to also,
the people have no business running gear, getting all the side effects. Poor guys.
Yeah. When I
run gear,
but the guys also running those big doses tend to be bigger, right? So they're gonna handle the drug load. These are guys that are 280, 300 pounds or bigger than that, 340. Big guys.
Now, the biggest one,
the 2 to 250 Tren thing is rare. That's perhaps some of the top guys. It's not something I would ever advise. It's probably overkill. I can't imagine that it's just like Anadrol. At a certain point, there's a dose response curve. It's not going to do anything except cause stress.
I think beyond 100 milligrams to 150 milligrams per day is kind of where it maxes out. And then, but the same can be said for tests. And then there's guys running a gram of tests per day in the off season,
Well, I just think after a gram of test, at least it seems after a gram of test, it just, not that the slope is linear to begin with, but it really starts to flatten out, right? The difference between a gram and 2 grams of test, the results are very minimal, I would say, for most guys.
Yeah, for most guys.
With Tren, you're right. I would say the muscle growth for most people probably stops around 100 milligrams a day, right? Anything above that is just CNS stimulation, right? Like the big power lifters, especially in Europe, you guys have the big strongmen that are run crazy doses of things. That's for their nervous system. I don't think they're getting any more muscle growth out of that amount.
No, it's just to get the CNS track.
Which
powerlifting is.
And a lot of that. A lot of that is that non-genomic calcium signaling. So it's not that you've got more androgen receptors causing genetic response. It's you've got all these cell surface calcium signaling going on. Well, you can still have intracellular calcium signaling happening as well, but that nervous system aspect, the more sort of drug you put in, is probably again why when you go to like higher dosages of Tren, where you start to see side effects with anger, depression, mood disturbance, even like sexual performance and enhanced libido, because now you have more dopamine from that calcium signaling within the brain. And
so let's transfer to that then, to the rage and the libido issues. That's basically the last thing I want to discuss about the Trenbolone side effects, because it seems to be a dose-dependent thing. Like the more Tren you run, the more you rage and the more libido. And then at one point you get sexual deviancy, and allegedly Tren turns you gay, which is like a little bit of a meme now on the internet. I got gay fantasies running Trenbolone, but it's not unheard of, apparently, on Reddit and TikTok.
I would say
not the bodybuilding community.
No, I would say just like right. So if you're not an asshole, Tren's not going to make you an asshole, right? I would say if you're not gay, Tren's probably not going to make you gay. It probably just gets rid of that inhibition.
So it's similar to alcohol then. Right? If you're
I would have to say so.
Alcohol is going to remove your inhibitions, make you more of a dickhead. And if you're a closet faggot, then alcohol is just going to make you an out of the closet faggot.
Well, I mean, again, I don't want to be politically incorrect, but so the difference generally between, it's seen in the brain between homosexuals and straight people is that the hypothalamus is a different size, right? So
really?
Unless which this was actually published, Harvard did a big study on this. And I believe the Vatican didn't want this in Time magazine. So this data is not, again, because it's not a great, right? Because it's then showing that there could be a physical difference there. Unless it's somehow changing the shape of your brain, I don't think it can cause homosexual behavior.
There's some scientific evidence that progestogenic signaling in the uterus during pregnancy might increase the likelihood for children to be gay later in life.
Okay.
Yeah, so that kind of rules out progesterone supplementation use while you're undergoing IVF. I've been looking into this very, very deeply the last couple of months. So, but to get back to rage then, to be more politically correct, Trenbolone rage, it does seem to affect a lot of people, especially in the beginning. And then later, as you get a little bit older and more mature, and again, daily microinjections, that seems to mitigate it a little bit. And after a while, it seems to be non-existent anymore.
Could it be, is it dopamine, Dean? Or could it be estrogen being too high again?
Normally, I think it's classically too much dopamine makes you anxious. Too much serotonin makes you aggressive. That's sort of the seesaw. So when you've got too much dopamine, it makes you feel anxious because it feeds downstream to adrenaline. And then on the other side, too much serotonin. I never actually looked at what triggers off. It's one of the 5-HT receptors. Too much of it triggers off irritability, which can, based on your personality, come out as aggression. So I think the aggression aspect, some of it's probably linked to personality in terms of like your patience level and how you've evolved, obviously, to deal with social patience level. I do find personally that my patience does get stretched a little bit thin when it's being utilized. That I could probably be a little more direct, but still the same person, but you can be a little bit more direct, not aggressive, but just more to the point. And I think some of that is probably that estrogenic signaling where your serotonin is sort of moving away from dopamine, whereas the libido aspect is on the other side where dopamine's raised and serotonin's a little lower. But I think it comes back to how it's influencing, obviously, the calcium signaling, the vesicle release within the brain. And I guess it then depends on how the clearance enzymes like COMT and MAOA are being affected alongside it. So like the anxiety side of Tren is slowing COMT down, and then you have more androgens building and more dopamine building. It could be the case that, from a serotonin perspective, once you've sort of cleared out that dopamine, there's a seaside and a more serotonin raising. And, unless you've, I guess, coped to that change in brain chemistry, it can probably trigger off a level of aggression.
Anecdotally, people on Wellbutrin, which is a selective dopamine and serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and fluvoxamine, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, do not seem to get the irritability from Tren. And I've experienced that myself when I was on fluvoxamine and Trenbolone at a low dose, that the irritability was non-existent, or the rage, or the obsessive thoughts or whatever that I would normally get 8 years ago. But again, this is on my second Tren cycle, running 25 milligrams a week, which is, well, child's play basically compared to what I ran before. And that was 8 years ago when I was a lot less emotionally mature and significantly younger, and maybe in a less better state of health regarding my neurotransmitters, because now I eat even better than before and I supplement accordingly. So I think all of these things also contribute. And of course, running a gram of Tren when I was, 26, 27, I'm sure that didn't contribute. Because then I was pretty damn angry all the time.
I probably would agree that some of it is like epigenetic in terms of like social maturity. Someone who's better able to regulate their emotions and you know, like I said about patience. But you know, there's no denying it that it does negatively affect neurotransmission if it's given the chance. And to be honest, looking at how you support that, I mean, on one side, if it's, you know, serotonin imbalance, then do you speed up MAOA to clear that serotonin out? Do you boost dopamine to try and bring it back in balance there? Is it, you know, a psychological aspect of better emotional regulation, of being able to see that your personality is being amplified by the androgen? And again, it's personality. I'm no expert in psychology, but there's a lot of layers to, you know, your psychology and how you've developed into the person you are between your genetics and, you know, your environment.
Is there, how much of a food relationship too? I noticed, like I said previously, that there seems to be much more of an anger problem when you're very hungry and using Tren versus if you're not that hungry. So it could just be magnifying that, right? That drive to eat, or the dopamine response, like looking for food, right? Because half the time these guys aren't really hungry. They're looking for a dopamine response from food or from porn or from whatever, right? And
should you be able to fulfill that then with just a regular L-tyrosine supplementation, which I do take, you know, for neurotropic, you know, motivation benefits? Might be the case. Like if you feel it coming on, why don't you shut the fuck up and take 1,000 milligrams of L-tyrosine and then see if that mitigates it? It wouldn't surprise me, honestly.
The other side could be, you know, another layer is gut health. Having, you know, and that's neurotransmitter because of your neurotransmitters made mainly in your gut, like, and then what's made in the gut gets stored in the brain. It's, you know, there's a lot of layers to it that I don't think there's a direct way of telling someone, well, this is you're going to offset the aggression aspect of it, because like Kurt said, I've always said it as well, you know, if you're an arsehole before you take steroids, you're going to be an arsehole when you take them. So it's, you know, it's amplifying your personality. That could be a side to your personality that you're not even aware of. You could be the most chilled person, but your patience limit is, you know, at sort of breaking point, that it just takes one little thing and then you're into a type of personality that you weren't even aware was there, but it's been amplified.
Yeah, it does make sense though, the gut-brain axis regarding the neurotransmitters. I remember I took some antibiotics a while ago because I had some food poisoning, and then my mood was just kind of off for a couple of weeks. And of course, you eat healthy, but it takes some time for your gut microbiome to kind of repopulate, and then you're good again. So it does make sense that if Trenbolone does have a negative effect on your digestion by changing your acid balance, you know, I mean, some guys get acid reflux on Trenbolone, and I'm sure that has a negative effect on your digestion. And steroids in general just mess you with your digestion. I mean, my digestion was 10 times better being off for that entire year. I could eat whatever I wanted, and now I'm on. Even at TRT, I just have to be more careful, because otherwise I get bloating or you know, a little bit of distension or that kind of stuff. No, Dean, your audio's off.
No, I was going to say, I agree with the digestion side, but then the other side of it obviously is histamine. This is another thing, another added layer that years ago, it was Luke Sandow asked me, he was having bad problems with reflux, and I was getting ready for the Olympia, and I said to him, you know, like, androgens stimulate histamine release from your mast cells, and histamine is what causes stomach acid secretion, but the layer beyond that is excessive histamine in your brain will cause mood disturbance, or it can cause, I guess, libido enhancement as well. So there's a another added layer of another chemical like histamine, which is technically a neurotransmitter also. So you have this elevation in histamine causing digestive upset, but also brain chemistry instability potentially. And the sort of way I suggested that you can get around that reflux aspect of Tren is using something like a H2 blocker like ranitidine, where you're blocking histamine from having an effect. Or that was the whole reason why I put diamine oxidase in the digestive stack that I created, because diamine oxidase is what breaks down histamine, and you lower your histamine, you lower your stomach acid production.
It seems too that tren acetate seems to cause more of the constriction, right? And tren enanthate or parabolin seems to cause more of the stomach reflux. It's the same prostaglandin, so it is histamine related, but it's the same prostaglandin response. It's perhaps in how it's reaching peak in serum is what it's affecting. But I know lots of guys that will get more stomach issues from the longer ester tren, and they'll get more of the bronchial restriction of the cough from the acetate.
So would a histamine blocker then, besides dealing with the intestinal issues, maybe also improve mood by having a better balance between histamine and then maybe improve neurotransmitter synthesis within the intestinal tract? Does that make sense?
Looking at it, there isn't really a histamine sort of compound like pharmacologically that interacts with. I think I'd have to look. You have
is it H1?
Four. It's H1. There's four of them. H2 is your stomach. H3 I think is in your gut. And H1 it might be in your brain. But there's nothing specifically that blocks H1 specifically that I'm aware of.
What was you and I? That's how you and I literally started talking. What was the drug people used to take with Clen?
Ketotifen.
Doesn't that block H1 specifically?
It's a first generation antihistamine, but I'm not sure if it
I could be
blocks
wrong.
the H1.
It might be.
I'll have to look at the receptor, but actually might, because it causes drowsiness. So
right,
actually,
and Benadryl should have some effect on H1 as well.
That taking that might rebalance neurochemistry if it was histamine imbalance.
Yeah, I'll have guys sometimes use with the sleep thing. Sometimes, especially during prep, when sleep is disrupted, they can take Benadryl at night.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, if you're allergic to that, do not use that. That's not medical advice. But, it's by weight. So it's generally 25 to 100 milligrams before bed will generally help kind of, mix with magnesium. It's pretty strong.
Yeah, or the ketotifen, which the problem is if you take ketotifen too long, it just makes you sleepy during the day as well.
Yeah, when the ketotifen, at least here in the U.S., is a prescription drug. So it's a lot easier just to go to the store and buy Benadryl.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, most guys aren't going to go to the doctor and ask for that because the doctor's going to go, why would you want that drug?
Yeah. I got it prescribed, ketotifen, on my first time I took Clen, because I'm an asthma patient. So I worded it in a way that I wanted to try. The ketotifen said I need first generation because it's less side effects than the second generation.
Was this in the US? No, you were not in the US. This was in Europe?
No, it was in Holland. Yeah. This is one of the few times that the medical system didn't fail me there.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the only reason I was able to get it prescribed is because I'm a registered asthma patient when I was younger. So I got salbutamol, Ventolin prescribed, and then I worded it in a way that I wanted to try this, because I felt that it might be beneficial. And then I got 3 scripts, and I ran a boatload of Clen alongside of it, and it worked. Good times. Yeah, and then I moved to Thailand, and I could just buy everything that I needed from the pharmacy. Or otherwise, I know a guy. Just give him a call. And,
I know a guy.
So I think that we got pretty much most of the things covered then regarding Trenbolone. I think there's several ways around it, but it seems to be just time heals all wounds. Because as you use Tren more often, you get more experience with it, and then you seem to be able to, tolerate the side effects or just mitigate them better. But I think, long story short, I think if you do daily subcutaneous microadministrations of Tren in the morning, I think a lot of things will be mitigated. And then it's just a matter of slowly ramping up the dose to the point where you don't get side effects but get all of the benefits. And that seems to be very individual.
Yeah.
Might be 50 milligrams a week, might be 150, might be 1,000, right?
Who knows?
It's really dependent on everybody, because Chase just ran like 350 milligrams of Tren per week alongside of all this test and EQ, and he felt fine.
Yeah, which is interesting because that would be like the worst combo for me is super, super high test and low Tren.
Yeah, and EQ with Tren, I mean, it's like anxiety in a bottle. And he's the chillest motherfucker I know.
Yeah. Well, but that's it. Like a lot of it's your innate personality, right? It's just going to bring out what you are. So it's just a super cool guy. So
that aspect of the anxiety is COMT, that enzyme clearing dopamine. So if you do have anxiety issues with androgens, more than likely you're either magnesium deficient, like what me and Kerr talked about. Mm-hmm. You've got too much estrogen, which slows down COMT as well, because COMT clears estrogen out. It methylates estrogen to excrete it after it becomes estrone. Mm-hmm. And the other side of it is androgens slow it down as well, depending on the dose. So you're setting yourself up for this recipe of anxiety. So the only way to get around that is support COMT through magnesium. If you're unfortunate and genetically you've got a slow COMT, you're probably not going to tolerate high levels of androgens, because that enzyme is just going to come to a bottleneck and you're just going to feel really on edge, or you're going to have ruminating thoughts, all of these negative things that come from bad experiences with androgens. All comes back to that genetic level of COMT.
So when we're talking about magnesium, we're talking about supplementing with maybe 100 to 200 milligrams magnesium glycinate or citrate with meals. And then the last meal of the day could be like 300 milligrams magnesium from magnesium threonate, which is like 3 or 4 grams, because the threonate contains so much of the tablet.
Yeah. So when me and Kurt discussed it, 10 milligrams per kilogram body weight is like the literature set point as the minimum level. So like someone who's 100 kilos, that's 1,000 milligrams. Yeah. And if you look at, 2 capsules of magnesium bisglycinate has 150. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing, 2 throughout the day for 4 meals, you're only getting to, 600. So you've taken, 8 capsules and you've gotten to 600. When you say to guys, you might need 16 capsules of magnesium per day to get, above 1,000, they're like looking at you with a funny face, and you're like, well, magnesium is very difficult to get from food.
Nowadays, yes.
Nowadays, like we spoke about it, 100 grams of spinach, raw spinach, which is like a bag of spinach, has like 90 milligrams of magnesium. It's very difficult to get the RDA is set at 3 to 400 milligrams, but you know how flawed a lot of the RDAs and upper tolerable limits have been derived, that with magnesium 10 milligrams per kilogram, the trick that we spoke about is your ALP enzyme on your blood work should be above 70. If it's not above 70, you need more magnesium.
Correct.
Oh, really?
Yep. And that's what we use it for.
Okay. So my alkaline phosphatase is always a little bit on the low side, but my zinc intake and my magnesium intake is sky high.
It's possible the magnesium's not high enough.
So the other side could be your copper, like what you're talking about on the last sort of setup, Steve, that your copper balance, and I recently read into a lot of the studies of how like the upper tolerable limit of copper was derived, and it was based on what is the minimum amount we can put in food for prisoners, basically. And that was how they came up with the RDA for copper. And then they sort of looked at what was the sort of a potential toxic dose in rats, and then multiplied it by 10 for humans, and that's sort of where they ended up broadly at that sort of 10 milligram upper limit. But if you go and look at studies, there's no potential toxicity from even case reports of high copper intake as well. So that 10 milligrams that people are always like, oh, I can't go above that. From what I've read recently, it looks like people can go above 10 milligrams of copper, depending on the zinc balance and magnesium.
I was going to say it'll block zinc is the problem.
But most bodybuilders taking a ton of zinc, and when you're taking loads of zinc, you end up driving copper down, you drive ceruloplasmin down. So, and then magnesium suffers, and iron goes with it. And it's the four of them are intimately linked. That magnesium is, the one mineral that most guys, if they have mental issues, sleep problems, energy problems, currently I take 2,000 milligrams of elemental magnesium per day, between
same here.
different types of supplements. And
Yeah.
I wish I'd done it a lot sooner. Like, I guess I learned all this probably 3 to 4 years properly into bodybuilding. At those first 3 to 4 years, you're trying to learn and figure things out. That if you can tell someone this from the immediate set point of going, it's such an easy thing. It does add a bit of cost, but it's relatively cheap, and the benefit towards your sleep, and your mood. It's just one of those ones that stay on top of, because if you do have anxiety, most of the time it's magnesium deficiency.
Yeah, and of course, if your copper levels are low, then your iron levels are low, and you need iron for neurotransmitter synthesis, including magnesium. I mean, a lot of people overlook that. And then now there's a movement about keeping your iron levels super low for longevity purposes, which does make sense. But then you're sacrificing your neurotransmitter synthesis in the process, which are also going to be, skewed from the steroids and then whatever else that you're taking. So I take about 200 milligrams magnesium from magnesium bisglycinate every single meal, 6 times per day. So that's about 1,200 milligrams. And then another magnesium threonate, 300 milligrams. So that's 1,500. And then I get about 800 milligrams of magnesium for my diet. But how much of that is bioavailable? You don't know how much of that is oxidized, or the fiber that I'm eating prevents the absorption, right? So it makes it a little bit difficult. I'm willing to experiment to bring my magnesium intake up, see what happens, see if I can raise my alkaline phosphatase, and then get some additional benefits. Maybe I'll feel even more calm.
Because when you think about it, I was going to say that the final thing with like ALP is because ALP brings phosphate into your cells. So the more ALP you have, the more phosphate, and then the more ATP you can make. So you can see how all of a sudden your energy level goes up from magnesium intake.
Yep. I was going to say so we're talking about like kind of biohacking stuff, right? With the longevity. I think I get a lot of guys that follow some of this stuff. They have to understand that most of the data comes from rats in a cage where they're not at harm.
Yeah.
Right. So they can just extend their lives, right? They reduce their food, they reduce their insulin, they reduce all these things. IGF is low. The bottom line in humans, it's generally the opposite, right? Like you don't want rapamycin high. You don't want IGF low in a man. You don't want fasting insulin doesn't make a difference. There's no effect on longevity to a degree, right? Outside of diabetes or some other disease. But like, these are not things that are relevant to really humans in the wild, living long. Right, that's kind of actually the opposite, because you'll be feeble and weak.
And
I think,
and people overlook just the simple basics of putting on some muscle and eating right and keeping your oxidative stress low, and then they want to do all these longevity drugs and protocols to extend their life when the basics are just missing. So that's why I always laugh about that. They don't look at the total picture; they look at one single thing, but the total picture is always lacking.
Yeah. Like that's even then when you look at blood work, like the whole thing about iron, the two main ones, the reason about iron is what we've sort of come to realize in the last maybe 6 years is ferroptosis from iron overload, which is basically iron-induced cellular death. And that's due to iron overload being an oxidant, and basically it sets off a cascade that tells the cell die. You can easily look at that in your blood work, and that your ferritin should be, in generally, from the literature, sub 150, and your GGT should be between 16 and 20. They're like your hallmarks of low iron overload or low risk of ferroptosis. And that's sort of where the whole thing about keep your iron intake low, it's because iron is an oxidant like glucose. But like the reference range for ferritin in Europe or the UK anyway goes up to like 450, 500. And the way I was explained, and I read it in a great book, another copper book by a guy, Morley Robbins, I think his name was, that ferritin is like an empty shotgun shell, basically. So when ferritin is in your bloodstream, the heavy chains of ferritin don't have any iron. So ferritin basically has been released into the bloodstream, but as soon as ferritin is in the bloodstream, it already releases its iron. So when you've got high ferritin, you've actually dumped the iron that was in that ferritin into tissue. So when your ferritin is, above like 120, 150, you're starting to store iron into your tissues, and that's why you look at transferrin saturation, total iron binding capacity. And that drives more than actually the serum iron, because, you can have, you could have a serum iron of like 14, 15, which is, middle of the range, but your ferritin could be 400. And, that ferritin is dumped iron into your tissue. It's not in your serum, so your serum level looks good. But the bigger picture is the iron that was in that ferritin has gone off into your cells.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of the tests in serum for most things are not relevant to anything that we're looking at. Right?
No. And people forget that ferritin is also a marker of inflammation. So if your homocysteine is off and your high-sensitivity C-reactive protein is off and your ferritin is off, it has nothing to do with your iron storage capacity. It just means that there's inflammation in your liver and you need to address that. So, of course, not everybody understands this, but that's why it's sometimes a bit difficult and complicated to really interpret your blood work results well. And that's why organ imaging is also so important to get that done. Last thing I want to discuss for this podcast, SubQ versus IM. And then we'll save the clenbuterol and mirabegron for the next time.
Cool.
Still need to research a lot of studies anyway. So, Kurt, you like injection protocols the way they were designed to...
Generally speaking, I think your Trenbolone idea makes a lot of sense to me. SubQ, especially if you're prone to the bronchial constriction. I think for most guys, if you're going to use an oil-based thing, you put it IM like it was designed and studied. Peptides, growth hormone is definitely much more effective SubQ. You lose a ton when you put it IM. It's just not the way that drug was designed.
Right.
We can also do one on the another episode on the long-acting supposed growth hormone too, because that stuff is trash.
Oh yeah. I would love to.
I hate to say that because people are making money on it, but it's trash. It's not growth hormone.
We'll save that for next one.
We'll save that for another one. I stick with the same with pills, right? I swallow them. I don't waste my time putting them under my tongue, and circulation is always going to go through the liver regardless. You're not really saving much by doing that. And the whole theory that, when you're exercising, the circulation is more in the muscles, it still has to go to the liver. The liver always is going to get circulation, otherwise it would fail.
Right.
So you're not really avoiding anything. I think that there are situations, TRT, if you're using a low dose and you're afraid of needles, then sure, use, 20 units of, test SubQ. But I think as you get into real cycles and bigger amounts, if you're using 3 cc's, 6 cc's, 9 cc's, whatever some of the bigger guys are using, they're not using that SubQ.
No, you can't.
Right? They're putting stuff in their adductors, their rear delt, their side delt, their quads, up high in the glute, low down in the glute, under the glute, hamstring, wherever they can fit it.
I think so. So the reason why I like SubQ is because after so many steroid injections of 2 cc's, 3 cc's in my glutes, quads, lats, build up a lot of scar tissue.
Yep.
And then over time, it kind of messes with my mobility. I can't get a full contraction anymore, extension with the lats, same with the glutes, right? And that, especially in the glutes, the scar tissue started radiating towards my knees, and then I couldn't really because it got really, really tight. So after so many years of all these glute shots and quad shots and lat shots, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go SubQ. I don't do the crazy high dosages that I used to do in the past. Right? What I'm running right now is 750 milligrams. And that's 700 milligrams of steroids. I mix that in a sterile vial. I shake it up. And then I inject about half a cc SubQ. And that seems to hold quite okay. The downside of this, if you do half a cc SubQ every single day, you create all these fat patches on your ass, and that is also visible. But the good thing is that it doesn't fuck my range of motion. So literally I can grab now my upper butt cheeks and I can just feel like these little marbles of steroids sitting inside. Now, obviously it would also be within my glute or my quad if I were to inject there, maybe limiting my range of motion or structurally, preventing me from having the best contraction possible because there's some foreign substance within the muscle. So I'm happy that that's resolved, but I would never get shredded glutes with a protocol like this unless I would to inject the oil in between my butt cheeks, which I cannot reach.
That would be an interesting shot.
Yeah, so you would still need to cut out the injections maybe 2 weeks before stepping on stage if you were to do a cycle like this. But then again, the dosages that I'm running right now would not be suitable for me stepping on stage. I probably need to double it if I wanted to show up hard and dense with my body weight. So I think it's suitable for guys that run like simple cycles, maybe not too high. But if you want to go proper cycles for bodybuilding, yes, you would have to go IM because the injection volume is just too much to do SubQ. And you get extra dicey lean, and you would imagine injecting 1 cc SubQ every single day. I mean, you would be left with, I don't know, cellulite on your ass or whatever you injected because it doesn't disperse properly. There's a very good study by a Dutch guy on the University of Maastricht or Amsterdam from Castrated. He kind of diagnosed or investigated how these injection depots disperse. So when you inject it, it doesn't stay as a ball. It disperses, and then the surface area increases, and you get all these little fat droplets where the lipases can work on for the active pharmaceutical ingredient to be released. And I think the reason why SubQ gives you more stable levels is because it doesn't disperse. It just sits there. Whereas within skeletal muscle, it disperses, and all these lipases can work on the cell surface, kind of liberating all the testosterone, enanthate, or whatever you injected. And then the esterases can start working on the ester. So there's a difference in release time and what's it called? Lead time? Not lead time. There's a time between where the steroid ester is released and the ester is removed. Lag time.
Lag time.
Lag time, not lead time. Lead time is with delivery. So you have lag time where it becomes pharmaceutically active. So with intramuscular injections, you can clearly measure that. With subcutaneous administrations, you don't know that. And the reason why peptides are being administered SubQ is because there's no ester.
Yep.
And it's active right away. Of course, you have dimers forming with insulin, right? You have hexamers and dimers where the insulin's bound 1 or 2 or 4 together, and that kind of slows the absorption. But, HCG is pharmaceutically active. Growth hormone is pharmaceutically active. Insulin is pharmaceutically active. Well, the ingenili might need to metabolize because there's an HCG binding domain. But all the peptides are basically active right away. That's why they go SubQ, because you have to create a slow-releasing injection depot, whereas with the steroid esters, there's a layer of fat surrounding it and then an ester surrounding it. So you need faster absorption and a more, more blood flow to the area to really absorb it properly. And of course, we're reinventing the wheel here with subcutaneous administrations, trying to bypass that and slow the absorption. The only reason why I think it's suitable is to prevent scar tissue buildup, which structurally might fuck you up in the long run. Like, I don't like the removal of the shoulder striations, right? I wouldn't have same shoulders as Wesley Vissers with striations out of, coming out of everywhere. And of course, if you do bodybuilding shows and you have to rotate, I mean, Hadi Choopan is a prime example. There's no detail there anymore. And that's a bit of a waste, I think. But yeah, it's hard to go on a 4-gram cycle and not go intramuscular.
Yep.
So Dean, chip in here. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I agree on both sides. Again, it comes back to that the hybrid aspect of injection volume is always going to dictate how deep you go, in my view. Anyway, anything like you're saying there above 0.5 of a cc or a mil. SubQ is going to more than likely welt you like what you see in there, because like the peptide example, peptides can go SubQ because they're aqueous, they're water-based, and they diffuse. They don't form a depot. They actively diffuse into the bloodstream.
Right.
That's why when someone says about injecting BPC 157 into the injured area, you're like, yeah, sure, some of it's going to interact in the area where you've injected straight away, but active diffusion, because it's water-based, will just go into the serum blood because it's water. Oil obviously can't mix with water, so you have the whole the side of drug delivery from a hormone depots. You have a lipo, phobic molecule, so something that hates lipophilic, hates water, so it likes fat. So now you've got to cleave the ester away, so it's sitting in the fatty tissue. The ester comes away, the active drug goes into circulation, Some of it stays free, some of it goes into SLU-PP-332, albumin and whatever else. The absorption rate, like you're saying with SubQ, probably might be a little more stable depending on how easy it is for the phosphodiesterase, the enzymes that cleave away the ester to get at it. But most often than not, one of the biggest causes of post-injection pain is someone's not gone deep enough in when they're injecting a large volume.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and injection depth, for a long time we got guys doing glute injections with 5/8 of an inch orange pins or blue pins that are just under an inch in length. And that's sort of where you probably need to go to 1.5 inch, which is either, black or green, something that is actually going in deep. Otherwise you end up with those hard lumps because you're sort of sitting between fat, fascia and muscle, where, again, depending on how the stuff has been made, some of it could crystallize. It's like Kurt said, I think it comes down to preference and what the person's willing to do as well. I can't say like definitively one is going to be absolutely better than the other, but having smaller volumes going in daily at the beginning, obviously when you're starting something, is going to yield probably lower peak dosages or plasma peak dosages
100%.
after the injection.
Yeah. It might vary between 10 to 20%. If you the same exact TRT dose, if you do intramuscular with insulin syringes versus SubQ insulin syringes, you might go from 1,200 to 1,000 or maybe even lower. So this is one of the reasons why my testosterone levels are reasonably low compared to the dosage that I'm using. And I'm using HCG, so I'm producing testosterone intratesticularly. I might end up at 1,000 to 1,200 nanograms per deciliter on an HCG protocol of 500 IUs 3 times per week, SubQ, and 150 milligrams testosterone enanthate. Whereas reality, 150 testosterone enanthate intramuscularly should bring me to 1,500 to 1,800 if I do daily SubQ or twice a week. So serum levels are significantly lower, but the result is exactly the same. Because once the hormone is in, it's in, right? And it just takes longer to get to the androgen receptor, but eventually we'll get there. So I feel results-wise it's the same, but maybe on blood work you're like, shit, my testosterone is not working. Probably because it just releases slower.
I mean, it's the same why you never check blood work following intramuscular injection the day after. Yeah, well, unless you're doing
you should,
the same,
then you know that it's nice and high.
Well, what I mean when it's nice and high, that's the peak you're catching. So if you're trying to see your sort of steady day to day, if you're doing 2 injections per week, you'd always want to do it on the morning before one of the injections, so that you see that you don't see that. You're almost looking at the nadir point where you're getting ready for the next injection to bring the level up again.
Yeah.
But if you're doing daily injections, that's not really going to matter because it's the same amount of drug going in at the same time every single day. So the level should be the same every time you repeat the blood work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, SubQ steroid cycles is only for guys that do moderate dosages. And I guess the guys that do proper dosages for bodybuilding shows or just bodybuilder dosages in general, would just probably better to go IM because of the injection volume.
Yes.
But you might still risk a significant amount of scar tissue. That's the only downside of doing those high cycles, And then how many guys do really do deep tissue massage therapy during their cruise? Not many,
And even then, when you sort of look at the scar tissue from the injection trauma, it's very difficult to heal that scar tissue. Maybe if you've gone into one site once or twice, but if you've gone into repeated times or any sort of intervention of backing off, allowing the tissue to heal, you're still probably going to have micro trauma or micro tears to speak within the tissue itself. And that's one of the long-term things with injecting is that you are going to have scar tissue, whether that's very fibrous tissue that you're never going to get a needle in there into the same place because you've gone in so many times. But similarly, someone coming along and like I've got one here on my desk, like a massage tool, you're never really going to get in. you're never really going to get in. Like, you're never going to get in if you're breaking on your shoulder. That's not going to break down scar tissue that's deep in. So people are like, oh, this is going to break down scar tissue. It's been sort of proven that you can't really. But if it helps improve your mobility, like what you talked about, Steve, if your mobility is impacted, your injury risk goes up as well, or your day-to-day comfort decreases. So there's, a positive side to that.
Yeah.
If you want to see the damage, the damage like an IM injection does to the muscle, if you take an old steak that you're probably going to throw out, fill a syringe with like 3 cc's of olive oil and inject it into the steak and watch what it does to the tissue of the steak. It's pretty amazing to see it blow apart.
Really? Does it like tenderize it or?
Oh yeah. Just you got to watch that's what your glutes are experiencing when you put 3 cc's of oil in it.
Did you see the Pernuvo test results from Chase Irons?
No.
Okay, so he just did a Pernuvo test in Chicago where they assessed the scar tissue, and they found some scar tissue in his bicep that was from side injections.
Okay.
And also some scar tissue in his glute. And that looks pretty interesting. They use AI software to kind of upscale the 1.5 Tesla MRI. And that's pretty interesting. So I might do one in the US myself to see how bad the scar tissue is in my glutes and other places of the body. Not that you can do anything about it, but then maybe you can make better decisions going forward. But it's clearly visible on the MRI. Right? And Chase had a torn glute on the left side, I think, and some scar tissue in his right biceps and his left lat or something like that from what I remember. But it's clearly visible in this MRI.
Okay.
But I found that dry needling works the best for this kind of scar tissue. So I've had that on my glutes, on my quads, and a little bit in my shoulder. Here in the front, there was just a training injury, and that seemed to resolve it quite well. But it's quite a lengthy procedure. Like I've done it over 2 years, all these different treatments, and now it's a lot better. But will it ever go away completely? No. I think it's just, if you do SubQ from the beginning, you keep your dosages moderate, I think you can circumvent all of the scar tissue. But if you pinned for years to decades, multiple cc's per week, structurally you're just going to be, different than everybody. And you can see that in the pro ranks, all the guys that do side chests, the upper glutes, it's just a brick. It's just a brick. Can't flex it. Doesn't look well. Besides, John Jewett, I don't know what he did, but it doesn't seem to be too much injection marks on his butt cheeks. I know he's posting it every day, so I'm like, oh, that's impressive
He looks good.
He looks fucking good. Yeah, I can't wait to see what he looks like on the Mr. Olympia set. But so he's one of the few pros that doesn't really have visible injection marks. Where some of the pro guys, it's lumps and bumps everywhere, even if they don't inject for a week. So maybe you should get John Jewett on the show, ask him what his secret is after Mr. Olympia, because these guys don't want to talk before the Mr. Olympia. I did like this and this and this, and then they get placed 5 places lower. Oh, they're worried about that. Yeah. So let's wrap it up here. I think next time we'll talk about Mirabic versus Clenbuterol. I know you two already did a discussion on that, but then I'll do some more research and I'll have my personal anecdotal experience with Mirabic. Anything you would like to discuss besides the Ngenla and the growth hormone that you think is bullshit, Kurt?
We can go into, again, bullshit, not necessary. It's not what people think it is. That's not how it was designed.
Yeah.
But I think we can just go into what it is. I'm not trying to harm anyone's business that's making money on this stuff. I just think people need to learn more about what they're using before they just decisions based on what's going on the internet.
It's a high velocity medication, so none of us are using it for the intended purposes. So
and it's
used that for sure.
It says clearly in the instructions it's for 12 and under. It's for long bone growth, and it's mimicking placental output of GH. So it's not trying to do, it doesn't convert to IGF-1, it's going to do IGF-2, which has no function in us at all. And you also don't want, contrary to the way some of these pro bodybuilders are using growth hormone, you don't want steady outflow of growth hormone all the time. The reason why it's pulsatile is because that's how it should work. It shouldn't be this constant sustained level unless you want to become diabetic.
Yeah, the only practical application I see for it, based on the research that I've done, is one fasting for fat loss. That's it.
But
so it's
still,
steady.
I would
you get
still
a
say if you
boatload of
use,
lipolysis, and then so you would inject it once, fast for 5.5 days, and then that's it. That's the only practical application I see for it.
but I would still put regular GH up against it. You probably get the same outcome with fat loss.
Yeah. Just that it's more convenient.
Yeah. When that's, I mean, even if you look at the drug name, it's somatrogon. It's not somatropin. They're two different chemicals.
Yeah, it's structurally different.
Yeah, it's got 38 amino acids from HCG attached to it. It's not right. You change one amino acid, it's a whole different chemical. You have now added 38 other amino acids to it.
Mm-hmm.
We can go into some of that stuff.
Dean, you got somebody at the door?
Yeah, I'll go and answer it now in a second.
Yeah. Any pressing topics you want to discuss next month on episode 5?
I'll have to have a think.
People have something to look forward to.
At some point, we should get into maybe a fertility discussion and get into testicular health.
Sure. I should have some good news the next time.
Fingers crossed.
We could do, if you want, another one I see a lot is blood sugar management and misuse of these things, right? Like it's another one, even with berberine, it just, everyone now wants to manage your blood sugar. If you don't have a blood sugar problem, why are you taking blood sugar drugs?
Yeah.
I don't, it's same with telmisartan. All of these drugs, I think people need to take a step back for a moment and perhaps go see a doctor instead of just prophylactically just taking all these things, right? They're taking heart medicine, they're taking diabetes medicine, they're taking all these other things without actually understanding how any of them work or what the actual need is. Like one of the silliest ones is the glucose monitor. That's literally for diabetics. Mm-hmm. Like these biohacking people sell this junk to people claiming that the fasting insulin, like that their insulin level after a meal has any effect on health, right? Your glucose needs to move up and down. That's natural. Nor should you be obsessing about what it's doing, right? The insulin model of obesity has been disproven.
I think it's like if you're a high trained athlete, I just recommended the glucose monitor to one of my athletes that does endurance, right? Triathlon stuff. Because he wanted to dial in his intra-workout nutrition. And he noticed
that could be different. That's for an acute use. So I mean, just for population.
For population, no. But like, so he's trying to figure out what is the best balance between a little bit of fructose, high brand cyclic dextrins, dextrose, and essential amino acids. He said, let's put a Dexcom on it.
That makes sense.
And then while you're reading it, we'll just do a little experiments and see how your blood glucose change. Because at one point you'll get a cortisol dump, and then the glucose responds differently, right? So it's all very nuanced. But yeah, we can just kind of bring it back to basics. And since the age of ancillaries is now coming to a close, and we're focusing on mitochondrial health, maybe we can just do a roundup of which ancillaries should be deployed to when, why, and how, and if.
And what blood markers to look at to actually make these determinations, right? If you're not going to see a doctor and you're getting labs, at least you're getting labs done. At least you can look at your labs and say, this might help me or this might not help me.
Yeah,
right?
Because
versus just making these decisions based on what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. And guys, if you have any cool recommendations for the next podcast, down below is where the suggestions go. I'll see you guys in a month. We'll do one more episode before I go to the Mr. Olympia. So that's probably the last Wednesday of September, I guess. So that's 4 weeks from now? 1, 2, 3, 4. September 25th. Or October 2nd, but that's a little bit close to when I'm flying out. Yeah, I think 25th is good. Yeah, and I'll get this one out next week. That would be perfect. Guys, this was an absolute pleasure, as usual. This was great. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next month. And then we'll bring some more cutting-edge details to the fitness industry. Because everybody's watching now. No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah. No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Yeah, no pressure. You can find Dean and Kurt with the links down below. For now, we're out. And I'll see you guys next month. Peace out.
Thank you.